Sorry about that. Didn't have my mic on. Okay. The agenda is before you. Are there any questions or additions or subtractions or multiplications? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Motion is before you. Any discussion?
Did we add a closed session onto the, before you approve the agenda, did we add a closed session?
It is on there. Do y'all see it? Well, I mean on the printed copy. Do y'all have a printed copy?
No, I just have that.
You probably
Okay.
got the revised version of the agenda.
To clarify, then there's your online version should have at the end a closed session pursuant to General Statute 143, 318.11A3 to consult with the town attorney. Does you include that in your
Yes.
motion? All right. All in favor of the agenda as amended, please raise your hand. Okay. We have Mr. Price with us online. He apparently had a meeting he could not get out of. Without objection, we'll allow him to be online for this meeting. Any objection?
No.
Okay. All right. Business items. First, we have our year-end audit. So if you'll identify yourself and tell us what's going on.
My name is Austin Eubank. I'm the audit manager of Council Price Scott Adams in our Wilmington office. I do hold my CPA license and certified fraud accountant. We had the pleasure of auditing the town of Andrew as of June 30th, 2022. And I'll just go through some required communications. We have a responsibility under the U.S. Generally Accepted Auditing Standards, Government Auditing Standards, OMB Uniform Guides, and the State Single Audit Implementation Act. We were able to audit and provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material error and in compliance with government regulations. We were able to perform all planned procedures and have complete access to both management and all required information. We did not have any significant deficiencies in internal control this year. The new changes in accounting policies was the implementation of the GASB 87, which is the leases. We did not have any outside consultation. All financial statements, we just thought they were neutral, consistent, and clear. We did not have any disagreements with management. All of management representations are represented to us in a representation letter. We did not have any outside consultation with other auditors and no prior retention issues. We did not find any difficulties in performing our audit. We did not have any irregularities or find any fraud during this audit, and no other findings or issues. So getting right down to the general fund, our total revenues and transfers in was $6,567,720. Total expenditures and transfers out was $7,319,775. That gives you a net loss for the general fund of $752,055 this year. However, in that total expenditures and transfers out, there was a transfer to your municipal capital project fund of $1,125,203. The minimum undesignated fund balance that's required by the LGC for a town the size of Andrew is 34%, which would be around $2,488,000. However, you're showing right at 70%, and your unassigned fund balance is $4,489,000. So you're well over that benchmark. Your tax collection rate for the current year was 99.74%. So you're doing very good at collecting for Ad Valorem.
Let me make a point there. In the past, we are subject here to hurricanes. And in the past, there have been hurricanes who've come through with damage, and the town has had to expend money, and it's taken 2 or 3 years to get it back. So that's why we traditionally have not tried to stay down at the minimum, just for everyone's information.
Yeah, and there's a slide that will show the previous 4 years coming up of that minimum fund balance. This year's a 4-year running total of your operating summary. As you see, for 2022, you collected $6.5 million again, $7.3 million of expenditures. A little over $1.2 million was that transfer to your municipal capital project fund. That's included in that expenditures that's resulted in that $752,000 of a loss this year. To get into the top 3 revenues for the general fund operating, your ad valorem taxes came up at 41%. You collected $2,429,000 of ad valorem taxes. Unrestricted intergovernmental revenues, $1,940,000, which represented 33% of the total revenues for operations. Your local option sales tax in that unrestricted amount was $1.4 million. So that's the bulk of that unrestricted intergovernmental. Your permits and fees, $783,839, and that represents 13%. And all of the revenues combined, $769,000 of another 13%. Total expenditures, you see, pretty even. General government's right at $1,459,000, represents 23% of total expenditures. Public safety came in at top, $1,651,000, represents 27%. Transportation, $1,553,000 at 25%, and all of this other expenditures, which includes your debt service and cultural and recreational at 25%, and that's $1,529,000. This is another graph that shows your analysis of fund balance. As you see, that dip this year from right at $5.8 million last year to right at $5 million this year. $4.489 million is available to spend at your discretion. $556,000 is committed, restricted, or assigned. What makes up that is Power Bill funds, was cash on hand for Power Bill transportation of $96,819, and your state stabilization, which is basically your receivables that cannot be associated with unassigned fund balance, and that's $450,000. That makes up the bulk of your $556,000 restrictions. And that's been steady for the past 3 years. The unassigned did go down this year, though, mainly because of that transfers. And this is the representation, I think the mayor was saying. Went from 111,000 in 2019. This is that percentage. Again, the recommended minimum threshold the LGC wants to see is the 34%. So in 2019, you had 111%, which makes up 13 months of expenditures. Dipped down to 2020 at 98.57%, which is about a year's worth of expenditures. Went up in 2021. You did have a good year last year, right at 124%, which is 15 months worth of expenditures. And this year, you're right at 6 months worth of expenditures at 70%. Again, attributed mainly to that transfer. Again, you're still minimum 34%. We're still doing well over the threshold. American Rescue Plan Fund is the another major fund for this year. Total expenditures was $16,169, bringing your net position beginning balance of $105,000 down to $88,000. And this is that municipal building capital project fund I alluded to earlier. Total revenues and transfers in of $1,117,000. Again, that's 100% transfers from the general fund. Total expenditures that were expended for the year for the capital project fund was $1,115,000, leaving you $1,700 left over. All your non-major funds combined, total revenues of $166,000. Total expenditures of $333,600, giving you a net change of $167,000 to the loss, bringing your net position down to $96,288. Jumping over to the water and sewer fund, total revenues and non-operating revenues, $3,944,000. you did have a grant that was from a capital project fund of $84,000. Total expenditures at $3,323,000. You did have the extraordinary item litigation settlement of $600,000 again this year, bringing your net change down to $104,703. Your net position goes from $10,471,000 up to $10,574,000. This is a representation of the cash for each fund. Red is the unrestricted amount, orange is the restricted cash amount. Water and sewer, you're sitting on $3.7 million of unrestricted funds, $2.8 million of restricted cash. All non-major, it's 100% of unrestricted, $96,000. Municipal Capital Project Fund, you do have cash in that fund of $61,747. All is unrestricted. American Rescue Plan, $950,000, and all of that is restricted. For the general fund, $4.5 million is unrestricted, and $96,000. Again, all of that is the power bill funds of $96,819. Just wanted to, again, the LGC has put all the pressure on the auditors this year to say that you have 60 days from the date of this presentation to respond to performance indicators. So again, 60 days in order to respond, you draw up a Word document saying that what you plan to mitigate these issues and going forward. So this year, what on the operational side was, again, the general fund did lose money of $752,000. However, that was budgeted. That was a budgeted loss, so you knew you was going to do that. So they're just concerned with if that continues going on in the future, you might reach that 34%. Just draw up a quick letter saying that you knew that this was going to happen. It won't be like this going forward. And then all the board members must sign that letter. Again, that was that one finding. And then we did not meet the deadline this year, December 1st. The audit report date was 12/22 this year. The date that it was submitted was January 4th, and it has been accepted as of January 4th. Audit.
Any questions from the commissioners? Good presentation. So, thank you. All right.
Mayor, I would recommend that you make a motion to accept the audit ending June 30th, 2022.
All right. Is there such a motion? A motion to accept the audit. Okay. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand, and Junior, just say that yes or no whether you're voting positively, so I can hear you.
He's got his hand up.
He got his hand up. Okay, I'll have my reporters over here monitor you. All right. Okay. Town manager search. We've had 2 responses. Mr. Interim Manager, Richard, will you give us a report on that? I gather we don't have any representatives from the...
No, sir.
The
Not from either the 2 firms. I took the liberty of I'm getting a proposal from Gov. Let's see, HR, I believe is the name. One of the principals in the company, Lane Bailey, you have his information here. He is a long-term city manager in this state, has recently retired and works for GovHR. I've known Lane for 30 or 40 years, and I would vouch he is very solid, and I think would do you an excellent job. Their cost is, I think they gave you several different options depending on how much activity you want on site versus virtual activity, the prices are different. The second proposal is a joint effort between Triangle J Council of Governments and the Mid-Carolina Council of Governments out of Fayetteville. So I know both Justin Hembray and
Lee Worsley.
also the
Lee Worsley.
yeah. Let Mr. Worsley also. I've known both of them for years and years and years. So I think they would do you an outstanding job also. So if there's any questions on either of the proposals, I suspect this is a 4 or 5 month process. By the time you execute a contract, they advertise, they take applications in, you interview, you select someone, you make an offer, that person has given notice. Probably, so I suspect you're looking at least May or June or later before you would have somebody on board. So I think you need to move forward if you want to
Okay.
shorten that timeline anyway.
Any comments from the board on either of the proposals?
I have some questions, yes.
Okay, that'd be fine.
And I'm basically directing these certainly at you, Richard, because this is no stranger to what you do, being an interim town manager. And you know both different sides of this. And Bob, you've been through this before. I think, LaRue, you've been through it once yourself. But certainly relying upon your experience, because I'm seeing, I think I'll have to scroll quickly here, sorry. The TJ Cog fee came out to be about, what was it, $8,000?
Yes, it was about 8,000.
Around 8.
Plus you have some additional.
Sure,
expense for
and they
having
state all about that.
travel.
And then the
so-
other company ran quite a few prices at us for different things, which were mind-boggling to me because I don't understand it very much. But anywhere from 23,000 down to as little as what was that quote? Sorry, lots of pages to scroll back. And down to as low as 6,000.
Yes.
So my question is for you, Richard. In your experience, what would you recommend here as far as this search process? You know both of these people, and I would like to.
think the COG would be more of a local and regional approach. You know, maybe statewide, where GovHR would be more, of a nationwide search. I think they've got more contacts, they've got more people they can respond to and stuff. So whether or not you want sort of a state and local search, or do you want to search, nationwide?
Because I'm assuming with TJ Cog,
Nationwide, I think, GovHR should be a choice. If you're satisfied with a statewide search and a local search.
Or at least a regional search, yes.
Yeah.
which to me makes a little bit more sense because I'm assuming they will have seen a lot of these applicants before and have some previous knowledge of them. These are people that are dedicated to the area and staying, within, they know what they're looking for and what to expect. I can't imagine somebody up and moving from California to come here to be our town manager, and that could be quite an extensive fee there in that search. But you do think that TJ Cog is certainly a company that you would consider first before going nationwide.
Yes. Well, I think that's up to the board. I mean,
Well, like I said, I'm just hearing a rec.
don't want applications from, the western side of the United States or New York or somewhere.
Sure.
Prefer to be locally or North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, from reading their proposals, both of them do a lot. I mean, of pre-screening and everything for you and presenting your best of the best and giving you options there with that. And I know that was pretty much the timeline that you just quoted was what I was reading in this as well. That 13 to 14 months anywhere, but I understand why that takes that that long to do that.
Yeah,
And
I
then-
think the COGS people they'll reach out to will be more limited.
Right.
Where
Sure.
the other does work in North Carolina, but they work nationwide.
Of course. And then Bob LaRue, do you have, and I'm just curious, I haven't, you've been through this several times yourself, and what is your experience and thoughts? I mean, you are here to
Okay.
advise us as well.
Since you ask, I feel like that we don't want to be too local and just get a friend of a friend. On the other hand, if that person from California were interested, we'd have to pay to fly them here to interview. Then we'd have to pay to move them here. And then we'd have to somehow get them familiar with North Carolina process.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense to me in either event to focus on state and southeast as opposed to trying to find somebody from Minneapolis or something like that.
Okay. Sure. And LaRue, did you have?
I think Triangle J. I think if we could start with them. If we don't get anywhere, then we can, expand it. But I like trying to find somebody that's local, that knows North Carolina, kind of can get the feel of what a small community is all about.
Well, like I said, both of you have been through this process, and you know what's involved and what to expect from
Yes.
it. And not having done that before, I was curious to hear your comments.
I think Triangle J would be a good start.
Thank you.
I'm gonna toot my own horn too now, because probably 60% of the managers in this state came out of ASU. So we've got sort of a broad, network statewide. So I'm gonna reach out to them. I mean, we'll put it out there, to as many people as
Thank you.
possible also.
We hope so.
Can we clone you?
As long as we send the clone home and we take the original, yes, with all due respect to his wife. But okay. Any further discussion or questions?
Not at this time.
Mm-mm.
Did Junior say something?
Okay. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we move forward with TJ Cog to find our new town manager.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of that motion, please raise your right hand. And Junior, are you raising your right hand? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. The motion passes. So, Mr. Manager, if you will get up with Lee Worsley and set this up. I assume the council will have to review the contract and approve it for signing.
Reviewed it, I assume, so.
Excuse me?
What you've got in your
Mhm.
agenda packet is the contract you'll sign.
Okay.
Yep.
Dan, have you looked at that by chance? Either one?
I assume it's similar to one we used last time. but
Right. So
I'll
it's
take a
pretty
look.
standard.
All right. Then we could move along by saying, subject to Dan's review, that we authorize the town manager to sign the contract if Dan approves it.
Yes.
Is there a motion?
Yes,
I
I
make a
do.
motion that we do that.
Yes.
Okay, LaRue made the motion. Any further discussion? Otherwise, we're delaying a month, up to a month. Yes, Junior. I'm good. Okay. All right, all in favor of the motion to authorize the town manager to sign the contract, subject to Dan's review, please raise your right hand. And Junior, are you? Yeah, okay.
And
Nice.
just for the record, I just looked at this. It's only 2 pages, and it looks pretty straightforward to me.
Okay.
Okay.
They
All right.
find the manager, we pay them the money, and that's pretty much what the agreement said.
Okay.
Sounds like a
Good
plan.
enough. Sounds like we move forward then. All right. Public works salaries. We got some tweaking to do there.
Yeah, Yeah, I think y'all had a discussion on this prior to my arrival here. There was a 2019 pay study. And I think those proposed salary increases range from about 12% to about 27%. And then several months ago, I think Jim, with the assistance of staff, came up with an alternative that ranged, I think, from 5% to 20%. I gave y'all a spreadsheet this weekend that showed what those differences were. And I think after that, Jerry came back with a proposal that had a recommendation of 19% increases all the way across the board. And I think there was some discussion about the actual towns that were used for the officers were not the same towns that were used for the public works salaries.
Right.
Like, comparing apples, oranges to oranges. So you've got 3 different proposals that you've already looked at. I'm not sure where your comfort level is. I gave you one at a just straight 10% increase, which really fits within your pay and classification plan because each step between jobs is a 5% increase. So you could do 10 or 15, or you could choose either of the 3 proposals that you had looked at before. Jerry's proposal for an entire fiscal year cost you about $141,000 for a fiscal year. Jim's proposal that was worked on works out to about $84,000. The 2019 study came up with $109,000 of additional cost, and just a straight 10% across the board comes out to $74,819, and that puts your maintenance worker's starting salary, I believe, would be at $42,716. Your officers you did at $46,000. And now, Lee, they already signed off on you. You can go home. You're good to go. I'll sign it. Send it tomorrow. Thanks for the, I was going to say thanks for the help.
This is Lee Worsley, the head of Triangle COG and Triangle J's. So, Lee, welcome to our meeting, and we look forward to working with you.
Do us well.
Tried to be here on time and hit a personnel issue.
Oh, yeah.
Had to take care of an employee. I'll just hang around for a minute.
Okay.
Since you got several options here, I don't know which way you want to go. If you want to,
Okay. What is the status? Has any increase in pay been given? Okay. So we were looking at something like 12%, I think, or
and paid out, so that those are the only ones that have been.
say that again.
Cops are the only ones that have been approved and actually executed in your Parks and Recreation.
Okay. So do we need to make any other changes there?
No, you've done fine with those. I think
Okay.
you're in good shape with those. You just got to decide what you want to do with Public Works.
What kinds of?
We're losing people to other jobs. I mean,
Amen.
$8,000 and $36,000. I mean, you're gonna lose people.
Well, that's part of being under 10,000 or under 20,000. If there are cities around you that can pay more, then people will, understandably for their families, want to do the best they can. But we need to, do the best we can as well. So you're talking about the non-police department salaries.
Just Public Works is all we're doing.
Just Public Works. Okay. And what percentage do you think we ought to do?
Well, your sheet is the last one, right? That's the one that you did. So I'm gathering that is his proposal. Can I comment right now, Bob?
Sure,
Should I wait for
sure.
you to ask for comments? I mean, we have to do this. Not even a question. We know again. This is such a mixed bag now. We've got 4 different proposals here to look at, which are quite extraordinary. And before, when we did this with the police department, we knew where that money was coming from. We had it. Here we don't have it. This is the question, where is it going to come from? It's not in the budget to do this. And I don't know how to phrase this correctly. And has nothing to do with salaries. We just took on a big expense that we hadn't planned on taking on. And we have to acknowledge there's no money there for that. I'm not saying not do anything. Please understand what I'm saying. But there are 4 vast, widening proposals here, which is so difficult to look at. I mean, certainly for myself, we know that I would cross off Jerry's proposal immediately because it's far beyond what I think we can afford to do. I guess my questioning here is, in any of these cases, whatever we look at to approve, and Jim, please chime in and speak here, because obviously one of these is your paperwork to look at this. But I guess my first question I would like answered, where then does this money come from? Do we have an idea? I'm assuming there's only one answer, and that's the reserve fund.
Yeah. You've already made several obligations this year on some sidewalk projects. Some other obligations that you've already agreed you're going to pay. So that 73% by the end of June is going to be less than 73%. So if you add any additional expense moving forward, I mean, you're basically using, you will use your, fund balance this year for it. And hopefully you've got enough income coming next year. Your sales tax numbers are still high. You're averaging about 17 or 18% more than you did last year. So there's some excess funds there, but you may have some excess expenditures that you didn't count on. But, basically to finish this fiscal year, you take it out of fund balance.
And we didn't.
And next year, you just got to balance your budget with whatever you've got. I mean, you'd have to handle it next year because it would be a full year then. But just, to do 5 or 6 months, I mean, you've got enough, fund balance to cover it. But I mean, just keep in mind with all your other obligations, that 73 could be 50% or 49%.
No, I agree. I always get nervous in my own business when I dip into what I consider
Right.
my reserve fund. And what was I not doing that I had to do that? But I feel that we definitely need to do something here, and that's why I wanted to know.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be fair, since we've increased the police department to, leave the rest of the employees behind. So,
Well,
Keep in mind, public works, for it to be a valuable public works employee, we want them to have as many certifications in water and wastewater and lines as we can find. And when you lose somebody that has those certifications and you have to hire someone that doesn't have the certifications, you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars sending them to school, getting them trained. They're not working while they're at school. I mean, so there's, a huge cost when you lose somebody like that.
well, I think I spoke to Jimmy at one point, and there are incentives and things that go to some of these employees as far as qualifications and how far they can go with that to get to do those things. But we do have something like that in place, do we not? Jimmy, I'm going to ask you, because
But you
Junior's
come to
not
the
here,
mic, yeah.
come up here to the mic and
Or-
speak for
or-
us. I don't want to cut Junior out of this conversation or
Yeah,
anybody.
normally you have a mic over there.
So
but,
sorry.
So we have, right now we have some merit increases in there for water and wastewater license. And so we're also looking at trying to increase that. Now, one thing to remember too, also as far as a revenue source, so whenever you have 100 homes come in, so you're basically getting about $42,000 a year just in your flat rate. So every 100 homes that you have coming in, that's a revenue source there. And I think for the last 2 or 3 years, we've averaged probably anywhere from 100 to 120 new homes. So you've got that revenue coming in as well. And then we all know we have 1,800 homes on the books right now in different phases. So the revenue will come in sporadically with that. Just depends on when we, when we basically receive those fees. But like I said, as an average, we're usually getting that. So if you're getting $42,000 for the last 3 years, that's $120,000 that you've been receiving in revenues. So we probably got 7 or 8 certifications that our people had to have. Yes, sir. And you got levels 1, 2, and 3 in each certification. I mean, so if you lose somebody that has, let's say 3 or 4 of those certifications, it'd take you years to get somebody that is not certified up to the certified level. Correct. And we lose. You got to have these people. Correct.
Any other questions from the board?
I mean, you could do something now, you could wait, and I mean, if you look at your budget in May and June, you may want to add some more to it. So you got a lot of options. You don't necessarily have to do all of it at one time. I know there was some concern
Well-
expressed about the 19%.
If we do anything right now, it'll only be for half a year anyway, right?
And what we looked at is, because we were losing some employees to other towns, that's why we looked at other towns, not comparing ourselves to whatever the police department looked at, because they may be losing people to different counties. But we were looking at where we were losing to municipalities and trying to get somewhere that we were in a competitive range. We won't, trying to get those salaries up to that, but we were trying to, to manage it so it could be somewhere where we're at. So, and that's why we looked at, in the Fuquay area, and we're trying to compare to those. And I understand when you're looking at 19%, it sounds like a lot, but when you're starting out at 36,000 and just trying to bump your salaries up to around 44 as a starting salary, then don't look at the 19%, just looking at what we're trying to, bump up, the starting salaries, and hence you have to do basically the whole department. Now, like I said, if you're worried about bumping me up 19%, I'll take 10%, and you get the rest of my guys. So, because they're the ones out there with the boots to the ground, so to speak, all the time. So we're just trying to get our staff members up to where they need to be, so we can continue to retain those staff members, continue to provide the service. As Richard mentioned, is once we lose somebody, it takes us, probably at least a couple months before we can get a candidate in there, if we can even get some applicants in. A lot of times we've gone several months and not got any applicants at all.
Right.
I know when I first started, we would have applicants, we'd have 20 or 25. Now they're just sporadic. And then when you do hire somebody, time you bring them in, it takes them 6 months before they can even, get going. And then they have to be employed by the town for a whole year before they can actually go to school. So there's another one. So if we lose one guy today, it's before you can replace those certifications, it's at least a year. And if he's got several of them, it takes several years to replace those
Right.
employees.
I've mentioned before, and these figures are somewhat dated, but management was questioning offering a senior IT programmer a $5,000 raise. And I did a study and concluded that it would cost $25,000 to replace him. So sometimes we have to, really do what's right.
I was just gonna say $42,000 is about $20 an hour. And you got McDonald's and folks offering $17 and $18 an hour. Sheets, some of the other larger gas stations, I mean, so. Unfortunately, you're in a very competitive market. So the 10% gets you to about just under 42. A 12% gets you to about 43. So, I think most of Jim's recommendations were in the 12% range. So that kind of gives you a summary of the differences. That 84,000 in Jim's review there would be about $42,000 between now and the end of June.
And if we do a
And I
hundred
think
home
most of
fund,
his
we'll take
people are split between the general fund and the water and sewer
right, and we've got
fund, so you're not necessarily paying for the.
we got 4 of it that are split 3 ways. You got water, sewer, and streets out of our 11.
So your burden on the general fund isn't as big as it was for your officers. You're probably looking at what, 30% general, maybe 35% general, 65% water and sewer.
Turn him.
He's good. We can see him. Okay.
Well, there's some advantage there.
I keep stepping to the sides, and it's probably.
Okay, further discussion? Motion? What have you? To do what?
He wants to turn the to us towards the camera.
And this 12% is not 11.937. It's an actual 12%. It's a full 12%.
Yes, since we've been through that before.
On these.
Um,
Well, it's up to y'all.
No, we've adjusted it right now. In your packet, look at your packet. Okay, do you see what the manager, Richard, proposed at 10%? And if you look at Jim's is pretty much an average of
12%.
12.
And you may want to consider 12, and in fact, that's what you gave the officers was the 12%. So you at least say you
Keep it even.
What do you all
Well, as I said before, this money is money we don't have, but I'm looking that taxes are going to increase for us next year, and we're going to have to find a way to cover this next year. Good luck, Richard, since you'll be putting together this budget. Because
I'm gonna have you somebody here before then.
we cannot spend more than we make, which is what we are doing this year. But we don't want to lose people, and we want to keep consistency in salaries up to a comparable place. I can't imagine, like I said, there's a big difference in what we all do in different jobs and things like that. I mean, I'm not out here digging a ditch in the middle of the night when a water is broken and it's below freezing, and that's what we expect them to do.
The sales taxes that are coming in at a significantly higher rate, your building permit fees, all these other things, I think you'll have enough revenue to cover these future costs next year. What you don't have funds for are sidewalk projects and storm drainage projects. I think allocated like $400,000 or $500,000 towards this sidewalk project over here. You've got the storm drainage project that you've obligated $400,000.
And Richard, did not also read something from you? I mean, are we not about to see a big, we don't know, is there an uncertainty about this sewer leak that occurred and what kind of expenses we may be asked to pay from?
Yeah, that'll come out of your water.
And sewer
So it
fund.
won't hit the general fund.
Yeah,
but
it
you
won't
got
hit.
outside contractors. I suspect the town will get fined something by the state. I don't know what it would be, but I suspect you'll see something there.
But what you're saying is that we have money appropriated to cover that? Is that what you're saying? If it's not coming out of the general fund,
In the water sewer fund, yeah.
in the water
Yeah.
sewer
You
fund?
should have enough funds in your water and sewer fund.
They'll cover that.
Okay, just thinking ahead.
Maybe it's not the right time, but what do y'all ask if we have any kind of notification that we can see we're losing that much wastewater or water?
Did you hear him? Jim?
Do we have any sort of instruments or indications that we're losing that much?
So, can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me, Junior? Can you hear me?
No.
Apparently
One
not.
question.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Okay. All right, so one of the things, that was one of our main pump stations where we had that issue. So when that line, when the line broke, so we just have manual gauges down there. So one of the things we're looking at is purchasing a digital one that we can read, electronically, and we can actually set alarms on that. So to give you an example, in this particular case, that pump pumps 185 feet ahead at time. All right, so when it broke, it was only pumping about 60 feet ahead because where it was discharging at. So we're going to look at buying sensors on those that actually will alarm us if it's below where it's need to be. So yes, we're moving forward on that. So to try to eliminate any of those issues or catch them quick. So, and there's a couple things that we do anyhow is when we go down and check the pump station, when we leave there, we actually go to the discharge manhole. So obviously we hear the pumps running, we can't see the flow moving. We go to the manhole, then we see the flow dumping into the manhole. We know the pumps are working correctly. We're riding the line as needed. But in this particular case, it broke in the swamp, and by the time we got it pinpointed down, it was originally just started out as pump cavitation, and that's what we thought it was. We actually pulled the pump, thought there was something in the pump, then put it back together, and then when we started looking at our gauges reading, we know there was something wrong, so we started dispersing to see where issues were. So yes, there is things that we can hopefully eliminate those in the future. So that's what we're working on.
Okay.
Okay, further discussion?
I think so. So we did give the police officers 12?
Yes.
Do you want to go ahead and do it? I'd go ahead and make the motion that we go ahead and approve a 12% increase for the public works.
Okay, the motion is 12% for public works. Discussion? Any
I
further
got a
discussion?
question. What about the girls in the office up here?
Yeah.
We haven't gotten to them yet, have we?
Mm-mm. When will that be presented to us?
I'm not sure.
Guys.
As far as I know, we haven't done anything on that time yet. So we can take a look at that when we bring it back to you later. I mean,
Because it wouldn't be fair for us to do the maintenance
Yeah.
and the police department and then,
Well, guys, that was what we do when we sit and we set out a budget for the year and decide what kind of living we're doing. So yes, we can do individual departments according to needs. I don't look at this as shunning one. If that's what we wanted to do, we should have made a budget last year
Yeah.
and put out a 12% increase for everybody. But we aren't doing that across the board. I don't look at it that way. I'm just
Yeah.
throwing
We
that
should
out there.
have. We
So
should have.
that's for discussion, but I'm looking at these as individual cases and deficiencies in the departments and
I
that kind
think
of
this arose when we, all of a sudden, several people were captured and carried to other
Other
municipalities, and so the issue came to the front, I think.
So when Jerry had me do those figures for Public Works, and we went ahead and he went ahead and had me do the other departments on that same spreadsheet. I have those figures on there, but there was no decisions done as far as like what a percentage increase should be.
Do you have those with you?
I do not.
Do you
They're
remember
in
how
my
much-
office, but
Do you remember how much the total was? Or
well, he didn't really go any further. All he had me do was just put the comparisons on there of what the other towns are at
I see.
and what the other individuals for the other departments were, which just basically leaves the rest of your Parks and Rec, finance, and administration.
So could you present that at the next town meeting,
We'll have something for you.
board meeting? Okay.
We'll give you something very similar showing you what each of the proposals
All right.
recommended.
Any further discussion? The motion is before you. The motion is for Public Works, a 12% increase across the board.
Also, if you would, if you'd add in that incentive package that was presented to you at the same time like we did for the police department.
Together with the incentive package, which was if you had certain training or if you, right, okay.
I don't think we had it in your packet here, but y'all had it back when you were doing the,
It's the same as the police department incentives. It's slightly different because of police department, but
see, theirs is based on actual certifications that you have to have. So it's not like you get a raise for going to college. You got to be a level 1 wastewater treatment plant operator, distribution, a level 1 distribution operator. So theirs are much more specific.
okay, the motion is before you. Are you ready to vote? All in favor of the motion for a 12% raise for Public Works people, together with the certifications that were applicable, that are applicable generally to all employees, please raise your right hand.
I just got one more quick question.
Okay, one question.
Yeah. On the, what we got down here, we're going with, like, for the director, we got 5%, 10%. We're going to go with what we have here, correct? Or is it just 12 across?
12% across the board.
12 across
We're
the
not
board.
divvying up the part,
Motion is.
the way it stands right now.
Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, let's take the vote again. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, it's unanimous. All right, and if you'll get back to us on the other employees.
Board, thank you very much for that, and Public Works will work hard, and we appreciate everything. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate,
Thank you.
I have one quick question. When is that to be implemented? Is it the next payroll or?
Next
I think this
Okay.
time next year.
Okay.
yes, next payroll. Well, Lee, thank you for being with us, and we're going to put you to work. All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. Food truck regulations.
I'm going to bring you up to date on that.
Good evening. All right, at the conclusion of your last meeting, there was a request to propose some changes that would relate to food trucks. I did want to draw your attention to the only thing that's not in this packet, which is the way the town currently addresses the matter of food trucks. There's no prohibition against putting them on public property. That would be a sidewalk, that would be a parking space, that would be on town-owned property. Now, we're talking about for non-event. This would be every day of the year, nothing to do with a special event.
Okay, you're talking about in your proposed regulations or
Yes.
or in okay.
Now,
So in your
what
regulation.
currently what happens if you are not part of an event is you purchase an itinerant merchant permit. It's a one-time $20 fee for a year, and if you choose to renew it, it's $10 for the second year. This
Let me ask you a question on
Go
that.
ahead.
As I
Please
was
do.
looking through it, I was wondering if we have an event on Saturday, and how do they get that permit?
This one, the proposed one, or
The proposed one.
well, actually, you wouldn't need it for a special event. Special events are actually exempt.
Okay, so if there is something that's happening on Saturday that they've been invited to participate, would they have to come during the week here and get a permit, or if it's covered?
No, actually, that would be just part of it'd just be a normal part of a normal event. So if we normally require people to get a permit for the event, the event situation would be more or less if you were, collecting licenses, charging a booth rental or whatever related to the event, then that would be the way that was handled. But that does not
So
apply to this.
it's handled on the site as opposed to they have to come to town hall.
Well, I'm
Well,
saying
they may do it in advance.
yeah.
Well,
it's advanced.
that's my question.
Well, and this would
Does
be-
everybody know they got to come here if they're coming from Roanoke Rapids? Do they have to come down here on?
I'm assuming
Thursday to get-
I'm assuming for our events, that's the way it's handled. I'm not entirely sure.
Is it not handled by the event sponsor, like
Most of the time it
There
is.
you go.
that the
Yes.
chamber has to get their own licenses?
Yes.
They have to be approved, or get denied if they don't have their health certificates and things in order. And I think the events require them to receive that within 3 days before the event. So I'm assuming.
This applies to non-event stuff.
Gotcha.
So essentially, if you're part of one of the town's events, or if you're here for a chamber event or whatever, this is simply, I woke up on a Wednesday and I want to sell tacos and I want to do it over here. So that's what this does.
Gotcha.
This addresses people who want to vend food that is not related to an event. And so what the purpose of this would be is to essentially address the issue of public property. It would restrict them to private property, which of course addresses a liability issue if you're selling on one of your city streets or someone trips on their way. Basically this clarifies whose insurance you're on, what's happening to you. Among the questions that were brought to me following your last meeting had to do with how you would be able to tell if someone would actually been inspected by the health department, if they had passed, if their inspection was current, and also gives you an idea of who's vending and where they're vending and so forth. This particular template here in front of you is actually from a set of regulations I was asked to write at my last 2 jobs. And in each case, the specific issue that we were trying to address was not having just pop-up taco vendors or pop-up lobster vendors or whatever it is people are selling. It's not about roadside stands. It's just more about simply trying to regulate it. There are some safeguards within the law in terms of, if you, let's say that you're licensed for your truck and you've been inspected for your truck in Wake County, and then you come into Harnett County. At all times that you are vending in Harnett County, you are subject to an inspection by the health department here. They can come into your truck, they can inspect you, they can also fail you, they can pass you, and you do have to agree to that. But simply holding up an inspection from Durham and saying, well, this is where my license is, has absolutely nothing to do with vending food here. So the 2 or 3 questions I was asking my previous job to address are, who are these people? What are they doing here? How do we keep them away from the doorway of restaurants? How do we keep them from sharing outdoor dining that actually belongs to the restaurants or belongs to the town? How do we ensure that they actually have proper permitting? If it says George's Tacos, who is this woman? And why is she selling tacos to me? And by the way, I think I got food poisoning and I'd like to speak to this lady. Or the police have a concern and they want to talk to her. Well, in this particular case, I guess you saw, if you did in fact read it prior, that we would have that information on hand in the planning department. which is good because you actually have those things. It also requires you to actually put it on the face of the truck, which allows the people who are getting ready to eat your food the same thing that they get when they go into a normal restaurant, which is as you're either being served or you're going up to the cash register, you can certainly see what the sanitation grade is. I'm not sure how many people sit there studying that particular thing, but I will tell you, if you walk in and the sanitation grade is C, please leave.
Right.
It goes down in quarter-point increments unless the refrigerator isn't working. So let me say it's a frightening thing to go into a place that has a C. Among the things that my previous employer was very, very concerned about, as I said, was the location. And what we ended up with after this particular program went into place, other than additional revenue, which is actually what it does bring you, is it gave business owners an opportunity to take a not-in-use lot and set up to 2 vendors there, trade them out on a regular basis, so they did rotate them. If you all have been over to Dwayne's over in Johnston County, near I-95, I believe you'll find that they have 4 vendors at the time, and they have a waiting list of about 20. So they rotated on a regular basis. All we required them to do was just drop this information off with us. And occasionally they'd say, please pass out a menu to your staff. Well, again, you have a lobster truck coming, you maybe want to find out what's going on over there. There are some safeguards in here that stop you from pouring your trash, your grease, your paper cups, making a mess. We didn't allow carnival barking. You basically have one sandwich board and you're kind of stuck with that as your menu board. But there's, of course, this is sort of divided, as most ordinance language would be, into what am I regulating, how do the regulations work, when do I want them to operate, and basically, how do you get the permit and how do you lose the permit? So those are all the things that are sort of built in. And I was trying to address Mr. Price's concerns because he seemed to feel that it was, I won't speak for him, but I'm just going to say the impression that he gave me was that there didn't seem to be a lot of regulation and there didn't seem to be any effort to address it in a way that creates a revenue stream for the town. So in this particular case, this program, in my previous 2 jobs, every 6 months you came in and got a separate $100 permit. And if you're having a really good day, you can probably cover that in a few hours.
Tom, are they on vacant lots only, or can they be on same
You can have it
business,
in
same
the
lot
business
as an
itself,
existing
as long as
business?
you're not up against a fire hydrant, blocking the travel area, not eating up the parking spaces. But no, it actually worked out better. We had an auto parts store that rotated on a regular basis, and it sort of became a community thing to tell people who was coming next. We did allow them to use their sandwich board to advertise in 4 days, pasta maniacs are going to be here, whatever. So yeah, it was a good opportunity for the businesses. It also gave people something to do that was outside of what was available.
So this would cover parking on a unit on an existing business lot.
Yes, you would either need the business owner to get it, and this is for fixed location. So you don't try your luck here today and you try your luck there tomorrow. Now you yourself as a vendor could go around to people who have an actual permit issued to the business, and sign up to vend there from time to time. It isn't necessary for you to have the permit. It's necessary for them to provide your stuff to utilize the permit.
So, for instance, if somebody had a vacant lot on a corner,
Mm-hmm.
they could get the permits and then invite units to come in.
And what would the cost for something like that be, did you say?
As I said, this particular one, when I put it together at the last place, it was $100 for every 6 months. And a couple of the things that we addressed were the police had a concern at my last 2 jobs, most particularly the very last job, that these places were sort of fly by night and there was really no way to see what was going on.
Right.
So this gave us a couple of opportunities, and there was sort of a built-in side effect that we really weren't counting on, which was we had a telephone database and an email database that was meh. And so when people turned in this permit application, that information was a required part of it. So we could update the database within the utility software or something. There's nothing quite like looking for someone whose utilities are getting ready to get turned off and you have a 12-year-old phone number. Go ahead.
It just went out of my head. How do we know if the permits that they fill out for their truck is actually legit and they're not using somebody else's name and stuff like that? How do you?
Well, driver's license is sort of the first safeguard
Right.
in there. I'm seeing a picture ID, and even if you are a visiting worker, if you have some sort of picture ID where you're currently doing whatever it is you do for money, there are alternatives to a driver's license. But in this particular case, we did take a picture of the front and back of the driver's license to keep it on file. Ran across a few people who had outstanding warrants, and amazing surprise to find their home information on their driver's license. So, I mean, it's sort of a one hand washes the other, but the specific issues that we were trying to address at the last job, and I strongly suspected that may be what we were trying to do here. And there is some opportunities to write many pieces of this many times over. I was speaking to the town attorney before the meeting, because it does have to go before the planning board before it gets adopted or comes to you all for adoption. But I'm just going to say that a couple of the particulars that we were trying to address in the last place that I worked was a cooperative relationship between us and environmental health, because that's actually who handles the inspections, whether you do it wherever it is you are or whatever. It gave us an opportunity to get to know the businesses, and it also gave us an opportunity to, again, reinforce the idea that when people go to the window, you know, some people want to know who they're actually dealing with. There also was a great opportunity to put a menu there. There was a sandwich board for the advertising purposes. I believe you might have seen in here that we kept all that stuff within 20 feet of the truck, which meant you're not littering this out. You know, we're not selling recliners and hats
Right.
and timeshares at the beach and all that. We're just selling hot dogs or hamburgers or whatever. But whether it was two hot dog stands or whether it was two huge Airstream trailers that sold everything but the kitchen sink, the restriction there was 2 on a lot, because, again, it can be a great amenity to a place where you're shopping. In my own neighborhood, Lowe's has a never-ending sort of hot dog guy, and there's always a church selling something sweet nearby. So you actually go in for duct tape and end up with a weight problem. But anyway, it's all good.
Got a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
What about if a citizen wants to have a birthday party and they want to have food trucks? Can they do that? And if so, what is the fee for a permit?
Well, I think that would fall more under a special event. Mm-hmm. So we're back kind of over there and outside of this. This
Right.
specifically restricts you to commercial districts. So it's
Okay.
not residential.
Okay, that's I need
My
that's
own
one
neighborhood
clarity.
this past weekend, there's a Chinese food truck, and the guy had it set up in the driveway, and I'm my HOA chair in my own neighborhood, so this was the next neighborhood over, and I just sort of stood on the sidelines waiting to see how long it took that lady to go into orbit and come over and ask him to please stop doing that in a residential neighborhood. I'm sure the food was delicious. But anyway, so this would, I think the party question would be more of a special event.
Okay, thank you.
You might check to be sure that's clear in the ordinance.
I would want it to be incredibly clear here, but I would also want, as part of, because there are a group of X's here, obviously there were some placekeepers. As I said, I spoke to the attorney about the fact that we had a couple of details, most particularly had to do with the fines, because if you're treating it more as a traffic citation about parking, that's a category. A zoning violation is its own category. And so, I think there's going to be some negotiation on that detail.
The statute only allows you to charge $50 for parking-related violations for town ordinances. So we need to just clarify that, because we do have some parking regulations in here as far as not parking in a handicap spot and stuff like that. So we just need to clarify that if it's a parking violation, it's $50. Anything else is the penalty you see.
And Randy, quick question for you because I got your they're doing $100 for 6 months per lot or owner business requiring that. Earlier on, you said something about $20 first year or $10 dollars.
That's our current one. That's
Oh, a
the
current
we
one.
have right this
Okay,
minute. If you-
never mind.
If you want to
Thank
open
you.
up a food truck, it's a $20 for a year.
Okay, all
And
right,
10 for the second year
all right,
with no oversight.
gotcha.
You really have no regulation.
We'll get it going. All right, thank you for clarifying that.
I'm stepping up? Okay.
Tell me what you're saying again now, $100
For every 6 months.
okay, and then how much is the $20 cover?
Oh, the $20 is our current itinerant merchant, regulation. If you were today to come in with a food truck request, it's $20 for a year and 10 after the, 10 for the second year.
That's every.
Let me ask you a
Yep.
question. How are we going to enforce that? Is the planning department planning to go to the trucks and with the police department? All you have to do is Shannon or a police department, local county, because what they have to have a vending permit.
Right.
They have to go with their commissary.
Yes, sir.
They can't go to the market by 500 pound hot dogs to build it.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
They can't go to town to buy. They gotta get food in a restaurant or call a commissary.
Yes, sir. Familiar.
They wanna be honored for that.
That's the health department, the environmental health department. So I kind of see this as cooperative between all three. I'm trying to get my face down inside of your screen here. But that's, I do that by doing this. But anyway, when I rip these pants, it's going to be on. But what I was going to say is that I'm only joking, is that it would be a cooperative effort. It depends on whose piece it is. If there's some suspicious illegal activity, obviously it's the police department. Shannon would be my primary contact on the zoning piece of it, and I don't have any problem calling the health department, which I do on a fairly regular basis about other matters.
What do we do about where they park?
Well, in this particular thing, you'd only be allowed to park on private property, so it would be prohibited otherwise. And in that particular case, I believe that's going to be one of the issues of parking, which takes you down to the $50 fine, and that's more of a police matter.
Has the town thought for it all, or not, utilize a lot, have parking time, maybe that be at, and charge it a fee?
That would have to be a special event.
I think it's too close to the restaurant, so I wouldn't.
Yeah.
All about that?
Well,
I know a lot of cities are doing that.
Am I turning?
I was going to, Junior, can you hear me?
Guess I'm not.
Junior, can you hear me?
How's this?
Junior, can you hear me?
Using those, Alan, you've probably seen them before traveling. You know, they have certain areas where the food trucks go.
Yes. Can you hear me now? Are you okay? Can you hear me?
Can you hear him, Junior?
Junior, can you hear me?
What do you say?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Well, this is weird.
Come here.
You've got the service audio system.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think I understand what you're asking. I certainly don't think we need to start promoting a vacant lot to become a food truck court. And that is basically a whole nother project for somebody to take on, which would be our downtown development director or person. But I think I understand what you're saying, but with what we're looking at here, this is a benefit to perhaps a business that generates more traffic to their business at the same time. But certainly looking into something in the future is something that could be done. I understand what you're asking by, say, our development director for the community downtown area and whatnot. But this certainly makes sense. I think and listen, it's always subject to change. We can go back and revisit any of this, but this is major groundwork to get something in place here in my opinion, to clarify a lot of this and to protect some of the things that are going on. So, that's it. I'll move away now.
Yes, sir, thank you.
In terms of next steps, let me just say, are we good? Okay, I'm sorry. In terms of next steps, I was going to say that I'd like to work a little more closely with the town attorney and then take something to the planning board to sort of kick around. I really think that that this is designed as a framework, but this is where we were. This is where I'm doing it too. Anyway, this is where I'd like to see us rubbing off on me. This is where I'd like to see us go next. And I would definitely like to sort of get some ground rules established. I have to say that the current situation doesn't have any safeguards and is, to me, a little concerning, largely because there's absolutely no accountability. It's literally show up and do your thing. Part of this encourages some continuity as well. If you know some locations where you absolutely know this is going to happen. It's not that unusual for a place like a grocery store, like Food Lion, to have one or more. And again, it sort of plays off of I'm buying food to cook, but I'm also buying something that's done here. And certainly for Dwayne's, it worked really well for husbands and small children who didn't want to go shopping with mom. So,
I agree with that.
If I have a food truck, can I put it in my front yard?
not at your residence, no, sir. We're going to write you a citation.
Good. Okay. Backyard will be all right. Okay.
A
Right.
party is an event. A party is an event. Just say, no, but
Make sure special event is defined very well.
yeah, I'm about to write that down actually as soon as I get back to my pen, but yes, clearer on the special event, but yeah.
So do we need a motion or what?
This,
I just like,
Tom, we're just looking for your guidance if you want us to move forward.
this will
right?
now
we
go
need
back
to
to the
do you
planning
want
board
to
and we'll come back here later. Yeah.
I don't.
I think we,
Yeah.
yeah,
All right.
let him have it.
and I hope I address Junior's concerns. Okay, see, it's all the time.
Thank you so much.
Have a great night.
All right. Number 5, annual retreat planning meeting.
One of the items I think I'd like the board to address is to establish a timeline for your annual retreat as you get into the budget process and some of the other issues you've got facing you. I don't know if you want something during the week, if you want something on a Saturday, or you want to split it up over a couple of days. But I'm thinking late February, early March at the latest. So we're just kind of looking as to some guidance from
Why
the
don't you
board as to what your preferences are.
Why don't you poll the board in the meantime and find out what the best days are for everybody?
I'm pretty open, so it's not. But I don't.
Friday's good
can
for
make
me.
a way to go.
Same here.
I did.
How about you,
We
Junior?
do want to have one, right? I mean,
Oh yes.
It's very important that we do.
And I think we have found with this, because this is like a budget and everything, correct? I mean, planning. I think what we have found, and it worked better for me, all of this stuff slammed on one day just seemed to be too much. We zoned out, and also you had a night to walk away and think if you had a question about what went on the day before, and you're approaching it fresh again. But I found
We have done Friday afternoon and Saturday morning, which would be consistent with what you're saying.
I would prefer it to be 2 days like that, and
Yeah.
because in one day, and you just, I know we were fried when we did it, and then we just stopped talking, and all we did was want to get out of there. So I would say let's do 2 days, and yeah, that seems to work. I mean, you business owners, I mean, I want you all to speak up and say what really works for you as far as
I'm
keeping an
flexible.
office open,
I'm
and
flexible. As long as I know
if
ahead
we-
of time, I could
a
schedule
Friday and a
everything
Saturday
around that, so
morning,
that's
you
not a
know.
problem.
But well, now let me ask you this. Let's go back to something else. Then when I asked that question, because that part of that was something that I had written down to ask about. In doing that, though, are we not invading, accumulating all this extra time for heads of departments and all this stuff if they're coming in on a Saturday to work as opposed to a weekday? And I mean, I do think I'm trying to keep that in mind after something that we've been looking at about all this accumulated time that seems to be piling up.
That's why I say Thursday and a Friday,
And
because it's during the
so
week.
I want to keep that in mind. I don't want to jam any of their Saturdays either, but I'm a little concerned about keeping it if we can. And I'm not expecting them to sit there with us. If we know the order of what we're doing, you know, there again, that they don't need to sit with us for the duration. If we have an idea of who's going to be covered now and who's going to be covered the next day. I'm throwing thoughts out because I've been through about 3 different ones of these, and some worked and some didn't.
Do you have comp time available for the Saturday?
Current policy says that based on the salaries that you're paying the department heads, there's a reasonable expectation that they will at times work more hours than a normal work week.
Right.
It does say that under special circumstances, they can be granted comp time. Over the last few years, they've been getting comp time for everything over 40 hours, which isn't what your policy says. But you can grant, comp time under
I'm pretty
special
special.
circumstances.
And Junior, let's
I think
hear.
it needs to be meaningful. I mean, I don't want Jimmy standing up here telling you how many miles of water lines and sewer lines these got, because y'all heard that story time after time after time again. I think we need to
Richard, I like Alan's idea of having each department head coming in at a specific time and not having, because what happens to us, because me and Jimmy's been doing this for 1,000 years, is we get worn down with it. Y'all get worn down with it, and we tend to not be able to move from one thing to the next with everybody in the room together. If you just got the department head with the town manager, with the board members and the mayor, and Melissa and Veronica being involved, however you want to be involved, I think that would be more productive and more efficient for all of us, honestly. We stay on point, we stay on task with that particular department. I mean, I'm just throwing that, and we would
That makes sense.
overtime or comp time, whatever it is.
Right.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, like
But
they go
if-
public works from say 10 to 12, and
or-
Parks and Rec from 2 to 1, 3.
I mean, if you like, if Jimmy or Lee or whoever is longer than me, that's fine. We can, if you guys want to come to some sort of agreement with Richard on how long each department should take, that's fine. I mean, if it goes over 5 minutes or we get done 10 minutes early. I mean,
For the most part, couldn't you
that would
bring
be
the couldn't you bring the town officials in on Friday afternoon?
I agree, and I think, Richard, you can coordinate this. In lieu of what I'd said earlier and about what's going on and when people are working, would we be okay if we kept it like a Thursday and a Friday and did not involve a Saturday off for everybody?
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
I'm an hourly worker, so I will donate that to the town.
Oh. No.
I would prefer Friday.
Thursday, maybe 4, and then Friday morning, maybe, or something like
Does that help you out any at all, Bob?
I'll just work around it.
Well, and there again, we may find that with what we're doing on Friday, that we could hear from department heads,
That's
and
what I'm
not
saying.
need them to come in on the Saturday either. I'm trying to. I've seen some list of some accumulated time that I'm just a little freaked out by. So trying to help out, and nobody wants to sit for hours on end when nothing applies to them.
We'll have Veronica.
Oh yes,
hold the board
sorry,
members and see
Veronica.
what y'all think of some dates.
Okay.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I've seen, what I'm talking about. I've seen a list recently, and then that is just frightening to
What
me.
would be convenient for you?
How we can
Because
eliminate
I'm
some of
total
that.
commission, so
Yeah.
I'm not an hourly person.
The Friday works best for me.
Okay.
Right now, I'm working Tuesday through Thursday.
Okay,
So
so
either
could we
Monday
do
or
like
Friday.
Thursday? Could we do like Thursday from 4 to 8? And then Friday have a longer day?
I can work that.
Is that feasible for everybody?
As long as you got enough notice, you can arrange your
Yeah.
schedule around.
I'm just thinking because again, if we want to eliminate using department heads or Veronica or people like that, if we go into that evening time, we're going into that calm
Right.
time for them.
Right. Well, if they're salaried though on a Thursday, that's not comp time. Am I right?
It's not supposed to be, but it has been in the past.
Yeah.
We've seen.
So
I'm so
do
open.
a poll.
I'm so open. It really.
Do a poll.
I want to make it easy on everybody. And
Okay, we'll come up with something.
That's fine.
Junior, do you have? Can somebody ask Junior because I know we already know he
Junior.
doesn't hear me.
Junior, can you hear me?
No, he's playing cards.
Uh, for our annual retreat, could you do a Thursday and a Friday? Okay, as long as we give you enough time, correct? Okay.
Put something together for you.
All right.
And then did you discussed with early March?
Yeah.
I mean, we're already getting into February here, so
Yeah,
early
early
March,
March.
which I
Yeah.
think is much earlier than we have been doing it. Is it not correct? Haven't we been doing it later
About
in the
that
spring?
time, Yeah.
I think your goal should help establish the
Early March? Yeah.
so what y'all do will have an impact on the upcoming budget process.
Right.
Oh,
right.
yes.
And that's going to be
The earlier
close.
you get to it, the more.
And normally we do it mid-March, early to mid-March.
Yep.
Okay.
Because the budget has to be completed and filed, the 1st of July?
June, July.
We have to finalize everything with us in June, but it has to be sent to the state by
Right.
July 1, right?
Right.
I've got, as the manager, I have to present it to you by June 1st.
By June 1st, yeah. And we got to get it approved and everything sent up by July.
Okay.
I think
That'll
this would
work.
be great. Early March.
Like little boy said, I'm flexible.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, last item I've got, I just titled legislative goals and appropriation request. The General Assembly has a boatload of extra money. The expectation is that they're going to spend a portion of that money. And if you want to get in line, you need to get in line early. Two thoughts, you've got a proposed new park and a proposed new community center. I think it would be realistic to ask them, say you wanted to put $7 million in the park. I think it would be realistic to ask them for 30% of that cost. You're not going to get 50. You probably won't get 40, but you may get 30, and I think you need to be realistic when you ask them for money. So I guess you need to start thinking about and deciding, is it time to move either of those two projects forward, or do you want to just move a single project forward, either the park or the center? And you don't
Well,
have to make a decision.
If you ask for both, at least it gets it on their radar.
Yeah. And I don't know, I'm not sure who your members are in the General Assembly, but y'all need to be, like reaching out to them and talking to them and telling them we've got some, some projects coming forward. And I think they'll tell you what, the actual realistic number is, but I think you ought to shoot for that, 30% of the cost. So don't be, you don't have to make a decision this evening, but, at least by that March, planning session, we should know where we are, which of the two or both that you want to move forward. So.
And just a quick question to refresh me here. We do have like even a proposed, Derek, we already have a proposed idea of what that community center would cost to build, right? Okay. I thought we did. It's been a while since.
Your estimate's 5, but y'all plan on 7. Because of construction.
And that's for the community center.
Yeah,
5 million.
Yeah, we think 4.5 to 5. And the way the county manager proposed it to us about talking to the General Assembly and appropriating those funds or whatever, he said, just don't call them up and ask for money. Have a plan in place and say, how to word it, that we're moving forward with this, but we would really, really appreciate some assistance from the state on this. And then ask for a percentage or a particular amount that way. Don't say, just give me some money because we want it, kind of thing. He said, you won't go nowhere with that. But he did say we need to reach out to Howard and Jim and put the bug in their ear as soon as possible, whenever you guys are ready to move forward with it. But yeah, you're probably looking, Richard's probably right.
So I think you got to do a but-for situation. If it's $7 million, you tell them we've got $4.5 million. We need the other $2.5 million, or the project to move forward.
If we're talking about spending this money over the next 20 years or so, has any thought been given to going ahead and doing a bond issue, which would allow us to do it and then pay it back about during the same amount of time?
Well, I don't know, Bob. I mean, we can't even get a town hall built. I don't know what, I'm just.
I think you could go to the bank now on a 15 to 20 year note, and your cost for interest is relatively low.
I mean, I hope it doesn't take.
The extra cost of the election and the bond referendum and all that.
I hope it doesn't take 20 years to get a community center built. I mean,
I hope so too.
I mean, the ship is, we're ready to go.
If you borrow your portions of the funds, that's what I'm talking about to cover the cost of 15.
Sure.
20 years, you would borrow your portion of the funds, because you don't have it in fund balance.
Right. Of course.
You have to actually borrow the funds. And you can go to the bank now with either 15 or a 20-year note. If you do bond referendum, you do probably 30 or 30 plus, and you just end up paying a lot more interest over the time of the loan. Just be thinking about that and see which ones you're interested in, because I think this year is your golden opportunity. These funds are going to start drying up. So
All right.
that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Anything further before we go into closed session? If not, is there a motion that we go into closed session pursuant to GS 143-318-11A3 to consult with the town attorney?
I make a motion that we go into closed session.
Okay. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, and I assume, Junior, you're raising yours. So we will take a short break and come back to the closed session.